Hey everybody, it's your favorite Resto Druid left. What's going on out there? Wanted to talk to you about PvE raid healing as a Resto Druid currently in Warlords of Draenor 6.2 Hellfire Citadel patch. Okay? Alright, we're going to start out with glyphs. Alright, we're going to glyphs. Alright, really the only two glyphs as far as healing glyphs you want to use are regrowth and wild growth, and the only reason you use those two is because they directly increase the healing of your tree form, and we'll get into that when we go over the talent of tree form. But they directly increase the healing of your tree form. It's one of your best cooldowns. You usually get to use it 2 to 3 times a fight. It's one of the better cooldowns as far as healers go in the game right now, so buffing that is actually like the best way to go. Okay, it leaves you with one talent slot that you can really swap out depending on the boss fight, depending on the situation. Okay, my personal go-to is Stampeding Roar. It allows me to just give the whole raid group a movement speed to get out of mechanics, out of the way of whatever. You know, Reaver, you got Blitz. We like to roar on Blitz, especially in Mythic, so that you can get out, so that everybody has the opportunity to get out of the way. You know, Archimonde's another one. The green stuff comes down, you know, the fire, and you got to move over to the other side. It's a great time to roar. We actually usually have 2 to 3 druids running it so that we can rotate them every, what is that called? Gift of a Loon or something like that. Whatever the ability's called, I don't know. But anyway, so that's kind of like when you want to use this glyph on a fight like that, where there's going to be a mechanic where the whole raid needs to get out of the way. Okay, the other one is Nature's Cure. It's great for, prime example is the first boss in HFC. Okay, he does that stun thing. You can dispel that. Okay, sometimes he does 2 at once. You'll be able to dispel both right off the clip. You know, you won't have to wait. You won't have any cooldown because obviously it does increase the cooldown, but it gives you 2 charges. So by the time you're done using, you know, both charges, you've already got almost 1 charge, you know, a quarter of the way back up anyways. So really, it works out. You could do more dispels more often. Okay. So it's definitely worth it for any fight that you have to dispel. Another glyph that a lot of people like to run is Rebirth, 100% health. That's great for fights where you don't have to dispel, you don't have any mechanics that the whole raid has to, you know, massively move out of the way for. Archimonde, Barrage, or Blitz, things like that. Rebirth is a great thing to use. One fight that comes to mind is Council. Is a great fight to use Rebirth on because you don't have to dispel anything really. In Mythic you do, but that's a different situation. But really, the way you have to dispel, you don't need to run the dispel glyph. But Rebirth is, you know, great for any fights where you're not moving a lot, you're not dispelling anything. All right, cool. So now when I rebirth somebody, they'll come back at full health. I mean, obviously you should be using your brain when you rebirth somebody. You shouldn't be rebirthing them into damage, obviously, and that's your job. If you rebirth someone and they instantly die, that's your fault as a Resto Druid, not their fault as the player. Okay, that boils down to you. You need to pick and choose when you rebirth and how you rebirth people. So that's why the 100% health, if you're rebirthing right, honestly, you don't need to bring them back with 100% health. I guess it saves, you know, 2 healing global cooldowns to heal them back up. But really, you rebirth them, you throw a rejuve on them. Any other, you know, multi-striking healing will heal them. That's fine. So it's really not that big of a deal. But that's the third glyph that you can use in this third slot, because these two really, you don't ever want to not use these 2 glyphs. Okay, and then, you know, people will go, well, Left, what about blooming, because of your your tier talent, where, you know, the 2-piece set is, you know, your life bloom has a 30% chance to bloom off the periodic ticks. It's like, so why wouldn't you want to use this? Because it increases that bloom by 50%. And it's like, yeah, you're right, absolutely it does, and it sounds like a great talent to use, but on paper, you shorten the duration. It can no longer be reset by your free cast because of your Omen and Clarities. It can no longer be reset by free cast Wild Growths or Healing Touches. Okay, so you can no longer re-up it, so you got to waste the mana to constantly be casting it on the tanks. Okay, and by shortening duration, you're actually reducing the chance to get those blooms. Okay, so more than likely in 2 life blooms you're only going to get 3 blooms, where in a normal life bloom on 2 blooms you'll get 4 blooms. Okay, for half the mana cost, because obviously you got to cast 2. Using the glyph, you'd have to cast 2 to basically equal one of the old ones as far as healing goes. So you're using twice as much mana, and you're basically doing less healing and using more mana. So really, at the end of the day, this glyph is not as good as it sounds. I thought the same way you thought, and then I sat down and I did a little bit of math, and I figured it out, and I did some averages, and not using this glyph is more mana efficient, and you actually do more healing with your Life Bloom. So don't use this glyph. It's really not worth it. So that basically leaves us to talents. Okay, we're going to talk about this first tier here. Most of it is, you know, kind of movement. They're all movement based. Okay, Wild Charge, don't worry about it. You're never going to want to use this talent. That is strictly a PvP thing, and really, it's really only a Feral Druid PvP thing. It's really, that talent is not good. It does a lot of stuff. Yeah, it looks real cool. Oh, you can do all these things and all these forms and stuff. Totally useless in PvE for a Resto Druid. Alright, so don't worry about that. So the other two you got is Displacer Beast and Feline Swiftness. Now, Feline Swiftness, we're going to talk about this talent, okay? Because a lot of people use it, and I'm telling you, you're wrong. Don't use the talent. It's stupid. Okay, it's a stupid talent. You don't need it. All right, 15% movement speed all the time sounds great, but what are you as a Resto Druid? You are a caster. You cast spells. Okay, so really you shouldn't be moving unless you need to move out of the way of something. So the 15% isn't really going to have an advantage. I mean, if there was a fight where you had to run a circle around the boss the whole fight and you could never stop running, Feline Swiftness is a great talent. But there's not a boss in the game that you have to constantly be running a circle around, because no casters would be able to cast spells, so that's stupid. So obviously they're not going to put a mechanic like that into the game. Okay, but so that's really the only situation that would ever help you, and that's not the case for anything. Okay, which leads me to my go-to talent personally, is Displacer Beast. Okay, Displacer Beast, 30-second cooldown, but it gives you a blink. Okay, so we're going to do a little example here. Okay, say this tree is a wall. Okay, and this hill is like a lake of fire that you don't want to walk in. Okay, and the only place you can go through is right here. Okay, and then this boss does something like this to you, and he puts this big green circle of fire in the middle, and you're like, well, shit. How the hell? Oh, shit. How the hell am I going to get through this big green circle of fire that's going to kill me without running through the lake that's going to kill me, or somehow figuring out how I can cheat the game and run through this wall over here? All right? Well, Displacer Beast. Bam. I mean, you basically blink through the whole thing. Oh, shoot. Falling here. Basically blink through the whole thing, right? So it allows you to maneuver yourself through boss mechanics without taking damage, fires, things like that, okay? And then what it also allows you to do is, say on a fight like Reaver, where the map is huge, okay? And Johnny, he was over here in the corner doing things he shouldn't have been doing, and he manages to die way over here in the back corner of the boss fight, you know, like way, obviously it's in a big area, way over in the back corner of the boss fight, you know, little Johnny over here, he dies doing things he should have been doing in the corner, right? So now you're way over here. We'll say this distance is a lot further, okay? You're way over here, all the way over, you know, in the middle of the room, and Johnny's in the corner, okay? Well, you can sprint out to Johnny, right? Now you battle res Johnny, okay? Cast a little spell, battle res Johnny, right? Johnny comes back to life. You cast another heal on Johnny, okay? And now you need to get back all the way over to your team. Well, now you can blink back, right? And then start casting heals on people. All right, now you're casting heals on people, okay? So that is why I personally like Displacer Beast. It allows you to get out of mechanics, move from mechanics, or, you know, maneuver yourself from one side of the raid to the other side of the raid accordingly. Okay, on Archimond, when the little green swirls come down, you can just blink over there, you know? You can just blink to the other side of the room. All right, and then it gives you a little speed buff, so you could take the advantage and move way over, because obviously you got to spread the 8 yards, right? Because you get that little, you know, you get 3 seconds of dash, and that actually affects you in caster form. See, I'm running faster in caster form there for that brief second. Okay, so that actually does affect you in caster form too. So as soon as you blink, you can start using globals, casting on people, and you're still moving fast for 3 seconds. You know, so it's just a great all-around cooldown to get out of boss mechanics consistently. Okay, I don't know why I'm moving in that. So that's personally why I like that. The second tier, Ysera's Gifts, hands down. There's no argument here. Just use Ysera's Gift. It's a raid-wide heal, constantly, doesn't cost any mana. It's just the best. Okay, it's the only one you want to use. Forget this, forget that. Ysera's Gift. It's the only one you want to use. Okay. Next tier, you got Typhoon, Mass Entanglement, and Fairy Swarm. And personally, I like Fairy Swarm. It's a 35-yard range slow that I can cast on ads, mobs, things like that, just to help my DPS out a little bit. Which I do sometimes, you know. Kilrog's a great example. You know, the ads, they spawn way in the back, they can't be slowed. I can hit them with Fairy Fire, you know, to help my DPS out a little bit. So I like Fairy Fire, but really it's, you know, whatever you want to use at that point. It's your game, you pay for it. have fun with these 3 talents. Do whatever you want. Okay, these are non-negotiable. I'm non-negotiabling these, if that's even a word. Probably isn't, but whatever. We're non-negotiabling these. Okay, but these, it's your game, dude. Do whatever you want to do, man. Whatever you want to do, it's all up to you. Okay, in this tree, all right, you got Souls of the Forest. You can use that sometimes. It does kind of hammer on your mana. Really, you just basically want to be Souls of Foresting every single wild growth, okay, that you cast with Souls of the Forest, because it increases wild growth by 50% in tree form on 10 well, obviously you can't use tree form, but on 7 targets, you know, using the glyph. So it's like probably the best heal that we have is a Souls of the Forest wild growth, like hands down the best heal that we have. But tree form's better. Okay, hands down, tree form's better. I do use souls in like mythic dungeons and regular heroics and stuff, because I don't know, just most of the time you just don't need to use a 3-minute cooldown to keep people alive. You know, Souls of the Forest is more than enough for me in those situations, and then it just, you know, it's just more consistent healing, instead of relying on a cooldown that you're only going to have like every other boss in like, say, a mythic dungeon. You know, you're going to have that every other boss. Souls of the Forest you'll have for the entire dungeon, on all the trash pulls, on everything. So it just works out a little bit better in that situation. But in a raid environment, Tree of Life, hands down the best, okay? Tree of Life makes your regrowth instant cast, adds 2 people to your wild growth, okay? That's why you use these talents, okay? Because they directly affect your Tree of Life, okay, and how much healing it can do. Because now your wild growth is going to do 9 people, and your regrowths are going to be instant cast, you know, 70k crits, okay? So it's just going to dramatically increase the amount of healing that your Tree of Life can put out. That's why you use those 2 glyphs, and really you don't ever want to not use those 2 glyphs, especially if you're using Tree of Life. If you're using that talent, and you're going to be using Tree of Life 2-3 times on a boss fight, okay, usually it's 2, but sometimes 3, then you want to use those 2 glyphs. It's non-negotiable. And then the next tier, once again, it's your game. You pay for it. Do whatever you want. Incapacitating Roar. It's an AoE stun. 10 yards. Cool. You can AoE a whole group of mobs, or you can AoE stun a whole group of mobs. Awesome. Your Soul's Vortex. It sucks people back into the middle. This little vortex you put on the ground. Pretty cool. You know, I like Bash. It's a 5-second single target stun. Just my personal preference. I use it in PvP, so I personally like that one. But like I said, it's your game. You're paying for it. Have fun with these 3 talents. Do whatever you want to do. Play the game how you want to play it. Okay, nobody's telling you how to do these 3 talents, so have fun with those. The next tier basically leads us to Nature's Vigil and Heart of the Wild. Dream of Cenarius, I use it in regular heroics only because my gear is just stupid for regular heroic dungeons at this point. So literally I can heal the whole dungeon by just spamming Wrath the whole dungeon. I don't have to cast anything else. I just Wrath the whole dungeon and I can heal my whole team. So that's really the only time that I use that, just for fun. You know what I mean? Like, oh, cool, I can 1-button heal this dungeon and watch a movie on my other screen. You know what I mean? Like, pretty cool. So, but anyways, in the raid environment, you got Vigil and you got Heart of the Wild. Okay, Vigil is the go-to, personally. It's 20% healing increase for 30 seconds. I know there's a lot of text there and stuff like that, and there's a lot of things being said under the description of the spell. Keep it simple. 20% healing for 30 seconds. Okay, and it's a 1.5-minute cooldown, so that means you can use it 4 times on a boss, you know, 3, 4, 5 times on a boss fight, depending on how long the boss fight, how new the group is to it, you know, just gives you a more consistent cooldown. You know, on Cormrock you can vigil every other pounding, you know, same thing with like Reaver or Sakathar's Apocalypse. You know, you can vigil like every other one, so it gives you an extra raid cooldown every other raid-wide damaging ability, and it just overall increases your healing done at the end of the fight. Okay, Heart of the Wild goes up for 45 seconds, does 35% increased healing, but it's a 6-minute cooldown, so basically you're only going to use it once. Okay, I use Heart of the Wild personally, and this is the only time I actually use Heart of the Wild. That I found so far. Now, I'm only 3 of 13 out of Mythic, okay, and I've killed, you know, all the heroics, or whatever, so I haven't really, you know, I don't have too much Mythic experience, but in my experience overall, the only time that I really use Heart of the Wild in the raid environment so far is on Tyrant, okay, where you have Phase 2, that lasts 30 seconds to a minute, depending on your DPS, where you got to be pumping out the healing. Now, we 3 heal it, Okay, so what I like to do is as soon as the phase starts, I pop Heart of the Wild. 10 seconds later, I pop Tree Form. Okay, and then we use my Trank to carry us out of it. Okay, and then somewhere in there, Healing Ring will get popped out. But basically, for that whole duration of that phase of that particular fight, I have Heart of the Wild up and Tree Form, and then I use my Trank to carry us out of it to pick the whole raid up. You know, so it's just really efficient for that, because after that, you really don't need any massive cooldowns. You know, so really, that Heart of the Wild works out great for that particular fight. You know, and you might find out, you know, on other situations, like maybe Gore Fiend, for example, maybe you only have one Devour phase because your DPS is just so ridiculous. Well, then you know what? If you want to get your healing done up, use Heart of the Wild for that particular phase, because you'll have it for that whole one phase and after it too, when the raid is still kind of down, to pick everybody up even more. You know, so yeah, sure, if you've only got one Devouring phase, but if you've got two, well, now you can increase between those two phases. You can increase your healing done over those two phases by 40%. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I like Vigil for that, you know, where you're going to be able to use it twice. You know, if you can use Vigil 3 times on a fight, Vigil's better. Okay? So if it's a, you know, 7-minute fight and you can use Vigil 3 times, 4 times, that's great. Vigil's the go-to talent in that situation. But if you just need healing, crazy healing for a minute of a 4-minute boss fight, Heart of the Wild's the way to go. So you just got to learn your bosses, how your DPS does, how fast are the bosses dying, and determine how you want to use those two talents. But those are really the only two that you want to use. You never want to be using Dream of Cenarius in a raid situation, because honestly, like, you shouldn't be casting Wrath. That is not an efficient way to heal as a Resto Druid. Okay, and then that leads us to our last row of talents. Germination, really hands down the only one that you want to do. It allows you to roll 3 hots on the tanks. It's a no-brainer. You know, just keep it simple. Germination, really easy. You know, lets you throw around more hots around the raid, which works out great. A lot of people, some people will tell you, Omen of Clarity is pretty good. It is. It's not bad. But really, it lets you cast 3 regrowths, okay, every time you pop Omen of Clarity. And honestly, like, how often are you really proccing Omen of Clarity? I mean, you really don't proc it that much. I mean, yeah, you got 2 life blooms going around and blah, 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 which you should always keep up, you know, but really, you don't really proc it that much, okay? And regrowth really isn't the most efficient way to heal as a Resto Druid. Hots are. Heal over times. That's what we do. We use heal over time abilities. So why not get an extra heal over time ability? You know, I mean, it's simple, you know. So that's really how you want to be doing that. You know, and then as far as the actual mechanics of healing as a Resto Druid, there's really only 2 things you got to worry about. Okay, 1, always keep Harmony up. And this can be refreshed by Swift Mend on a target that's got Rejuvenation on them. Okay. Healing Touch will also reset this, okay, and obviously Regrowth, as you saw from the beginning. Okay, so you always want to keep that up. Okay, that's just a no-brainer. 23% increase healing to your hots. Okay, so you always want to keep that up. All right, and basically, if you Swift Mend on cooldown, you're basically always going to have it up. Okay, if you're Swift Mending, you know, every 20 seconds and regrowthing every time you proc Omen of Clarity, it's basically never going to fall down. But just make sure that you're keeping it up. Okay, then the other one is the mechanic of Rejuvenation, and a lot of Druids don't actually know this. Okay, Rejuvenation, it comes in. No, shoot. No, see, I just spoiled it. All right. Anyway, so Rejuvenation, it comes in at 18 seconds, starts immediately ticking down. Okay. Germination, same thing. Comes in at 18 seconds, immediately starts ticking down. What a lot of people don't know is at 6, 5, cast Rejuve, what did it just do? It just went up to 23 seconds. So you can stack your Rejuvenations like that. Okay, so that you always have them up and not waste mana and maximize their healing output. Okay, so that's just a little simple little Rejuvenation mechanic that a lot of Druids don't know about. Okay, Rejuve, if you recast it at, you know, 4, 5, 6 seconds, it'll go up to 23. And so you just get that little extra healing out of it. Okay, so that's really all you need to know there. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. You know, keep your wild mushrooms down. You know, I like to use the glyph that lets me move it around. Okay, so that if the raid is supposed to stack on this marker, I can put my mushroom right on that marker, and then anybody standing around that marker will, by default, be healed, instead of it landing on a person way over here. Okay, and now this guy standing over here on the other side of the marker isn't actually getting healed by my you know, one of my great little area heals, my wild mushroom. Okay, it really is a good heal. All right, and then beyond that, I mean, yeah, have fun. It's your game. You pay for it. You play it the way you want. I'm just giving you suggestions on how to maximize your healing output and have fun while you do it, because everybody likes a healer that puts out a lot of heals. So, all right, well, we'll see you in the next video, and have a good day.